What's up everyone, David here. I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to another video. In this one, I'm gonna show you a brand new plugin by the guy who created one of the best plugins ever, TiAMO. Mathew is back with a new multiband processor like no other. It took one of the most important, used, and often overlooked tools and concepts that experienced engineers use to achieve certain sounds, pushed it to 11 and made it easy to use for everyone. Let me tell you about the new Mathew TiAMO. Let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to Minstry TV. Hope you guys are having a great day. Before we start, as usual, check the info box down below for free plugins, special discounts, offers, and of course a link to the new Mathew TiAMO. If you want to book mix and mastering with me, go to the website mixplusTV.com. In there you will find all the mix and mastering courses available, and you can also book mix consultations and private lessons. If you want to access the exclusive library of in-depth mix and mastering videos here on YouTube, click the join button, become a Mix Plus TV member, access the library, get all the perks, and if the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Let's get to the video. All right, here we have the new Mathew TiAMO multiband dynamics with his absolutely stunning GUI. I love the color scheme. I love everything about the GUI. All the controls are here in front of you, clear, easy to use, easy to set. But besides the aesthetic, this multiband processor really is very different from anything out there. And the key of it is his internal sidechain. So at the core, we have a 3-band multiband dynamic processor. What sets this apart is the incredible flexibility and uniqueness that you have in setting up what triggers each band. You will see how many uses this thing has, whether it's 2-box, full mix, mastering, groups, single tracks. And you will also see that you will be able to not only do things that no other processors can do, but you will also be able to do the things that now requires time, routing, maybe multiple processors very easily with just this one plugin. Let's dive in and take a look at the controls, because that will also easily explain why this multiband is different from others. Starting from the left, we have an input meter and input gain, and then we have the 3 bands of processing: low band, mid band, and high band. For each one, we have the tightness, which you can think of like a combination of ratio and threshold at the same time, although it can work slightly different based on where these 3 sliders here for each band are positioned. We have a dry wet knob, we have a gain knob. For each band, we have an on-off button, and you can see turn off the light and the processing. We have a solo button for each band, and we have a sidechain listen. Then we have the sidechain meter here on the left and the gain reduction meter here on the right of the 3 sliders. And then we have the 3 sliders, A, B, and C. And I'm gonna tell you what those are and how they work in a minute. Before telling you that, we need to take a look at the sidechain panels on top. Sidechain A, B, and C. Now you can probably start understanding why this is so special. Each sidechain panel has 2 crossovers, one for the lows and one for the high band, all right? Same for the mid, same for the high. 2 crossovers each. And in between band, we have a link button. So you can see that if this is selected, the band, in this case, I'm tweaking the low frequency on the mid band, the high frequency on the low band follows, right? So it's gonna be exactly the same. So the crossover point, when this band ends, that one begins, and same for the high band if I tweak the high frequency, okay? Pretty straightforward. If I unlink the band, I can have overlapping sidechain. For each sidechain, we have a listen button, so we again listen to this sidechain, or we can have an external button. This means that you now have 3 independent sidechain where you can either set the bandwidth for each one. You can also trigger that specific sidechain with an external source. And we're gonna see examples. Now that we know this, we can easily understand the 3 sliders. So by default, and you can go back to the default by clicking the Set Classic button right here, and you can see the settings go back to default state. By default state, the low band is triggered by sidechain A, the mid band by sidechain B, the high band by sidechain A. You can now control for each band what triggers it. So an easy example, if you want to create the EDM sidechain vibe on a mix, you will just have sidechain A, so the low end, to trigger the high band and the mid band. Let me give you an audio example right away. This is without. and this is width. And as you can see, we don't have attack and release on this. It has instead modes, which are here at the bottom. You can see the submenus: titanium, TI General, Bolt, TI Smash, Oxygen, Hydrogen, and Nitrogen. These are modes taken from another one of Mathew Lane great processors called Tico Compressor. Tico Compressor had, let's say, the most used, the most proven to work settings for a lot of the classic compressors. So for example, full bottom mode on an 1176, or certain settings on an LA2A, or 2-bus settings for an SSL compressor, and so on. And put all these proven to work settings and behaviors in these modes. So you don't have to set attack and release. So you only have to select the mode, and you can set these mode independently for each band. But of course, you have 3 sliders. I gave you the easiest example because you can mix and match what triggers a certain band. So you don't have to just use A. You can use a combination of bands and see and hear how it reacts to the material. Let's keep going with these drum loops and let's hear how it reacts once I tweak the sidechains. All right, you can hear 2 things already, how the different modes drastically change the behavior of the compressor. So these are not just presets for the attack and release. These are presets for the curve, the behavior of the compressor, the topology of the compressor emulated. So you can hear how the TI Smash makes the top end so sharp and bright and powerful, how snappy the low end becomes. And notice one thing that I didn't mention, the crossovers at the top are only for the internal side chain. These here, the low mid crossover and the high mid crossover, are instead the range of operation for each band. So the high band, if you want to lower it to like 1K, this is what I'm gonna move and not the side chain. If, for example, I want to use this one as a de-esser, let's try it on a full mix, for example. All right, I'm gonna solo the side chain so I can hear what it triggers it. This is side chain C, and then I can give the side chain to this band, and now I can solo this band and see how much gain reduction I'm doing, then compensate for it. Okay, so there's so many possibilities. This thing is so deep. And the fact that you can blend the 3 side chains to trigger a specific band gives you so many possibilities. And like I said, it allows you to do things that will require complex routing. Let's take, for example, a full mix and you want the vocals to trigger the compression, right? We can go on the mid band, listen to the side chain. And then we can set this band fully on the mid band and then halfway on the top and leave the top end to trigger a little more and not on the low end and just trigger the low end with the low end. So.
Go once and you let it go twice in the isolated room. Dreams are easy in a doom. Walking on the road, far from you lost in the crowd. Resonating souvenirs, run by lust and by fears. Bullet in the head stands like the only answer to the torture.
This seems kind of complicated maybe for some people that are not as experienced, but because of this would be a great tool to learn to actually how to use internal sidechain to make your compressor react to what you want. And listen to how much the different modes change the behavior of the compressor. I'm going to do this on the low end alone so you can really hear the difference. For example, so far I use gentle on the low band and I think titanium, but listen to how switching to nitrogen makes it pumpy. I'm going to start with gentle. All right, it's pretty awesome. Now I can do the same with my mid band and have it trigger with the low end. You hear it creates very unique movements and pumping effects on the three bands. So this is not just a tool to control dynamics. This really is, I want to say even more, a sound design tool where you can shape things with both the makeup gain and the behavior of the three bands and the different grooves. Of course, you got to be careful because you can mess things up, but you can really do unique things. So far, we only used, so to speak, the three internal sidechains, but let's try to use the external sidechain for either one or all three bands. So I have this full rock mix here, and I'm gonna send the lead vocal to bus 1 here with this send. Now I'm gonna go to my dynamic processor here and send the external sidechain on sidechain C. Why C? It doesn't matter, right? Because you can trigger every band with every sidechain. So in this case, I'm gonna use sidechain C because I know I don't need the top end of this mix to trigger anything, but I might need the low end to trigger something. I might need the mid-range to trigger something. So I'm using sidechain C and I'm sending the vocal into it to be my trigger. If I listen to this, I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. And what do you notice? That you can actually filter the external sidechain with these controls here. So in this case, we have a vocal, so we would have the entire vocal. But if you want to trigger a melody, let's say with a loop, but just the top end of the loop or just the low end of the loop, we can actually filter our external sidechain. This is another unique feature. So in this case, we're going to leave it all the way open. I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that I've left in me. I'm alright, being away from you, and I'll be fine. Cleaning up the corner, put it back in order. You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you. And you notice something. There was at some point when no signal was coming from the external sidechain that we had a little bit of gain reduction in the two bands controlled by C. This is because if we put all the slider to 0 and we set our tightness at some point here open enough, this will act like a static and limited amount of gain reduction. Let me show you. Right, and this will change once I move the sliders. I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness in mine? Where will my heart come back to life? All right, it makes sense. So again, it opens up so many possibilities. Let's try really quick what I said today and just trigger a melody with a drum rhythmic loop. Okay, I have this drum loop here, which I'm gonna send to our bus 1. And then we have our melody part. And the rest of the tracks. I'm gonna push the melody up a bit, then go to our dynamic processor and use the external sidechain on sidechain A. Listen to it, and I want only the kick drum out of this loop to trigger my melody. All right, here we go. And then we apply sidechain A on all the other bands that we want to trigger with it. Right? Now we created an exciting movement between the melody, the kick drum that punches more. It's a very, very cool processor. Think of, for example, something that we do often, triggering synths and guitars with a lead vocal. You can external sidechain and just use 1 or 2 bands to duck the frequencies that clash against maybe your snare, maybe your electric guitars, maybe your synths. So there's so many possibilities with this thing. And it's also a great vocal processor. I like when, especially when I have a very, very dynamic kind of all over the place vocal, to use multiband processing on it and use usually my first slot. So it kind of evens out things a little bit. It's a great de-esser. Now I have this one here. It's not particularly bright, but we'll use it just as an example. So I'm gonna listen to my top end sidechain. All right, let's take that from 4K to 5K, just really hyper focus on that range. I'm gonna pick bold as mode.
I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you.
All right, so you can see I can make the vocal brighter and more clear, but I can control very precisely those hard consonants and also the parts when she really pushes in those high mid frequencies, so the vocal will never sound like scratchy and piercing. And I can turn up the volume in the mix without those passages to become hard to listen to. And you can do the same with low mid bands. If you want to control low mids, we start around 260, 280 maybe, and we go down to 160, and we can solo this band. Now we don't solo the sidechain, we solo the band of action, and we can give them the same settings or close to the same settings to our sidechain B, and then have this one triggered.
Don't need to be loved by you. I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. See, I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. See, I was born to run, I don't.
You can also do so many creative things with the use of external and such tweakable internal sidechain with the new Mathew Lane TiAMO. I think this plugin is another hit. And this is it for the video. You will find the link in the info box down below. If you like the video, please don't forget to leave a like. If you have questions, leave them in the comment down below. Go to the website mixplustv.com to book mix and mastering with me and check out all the mix and mastering courses. Join the channel, become a member to access the exclusive library of videos here. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.